This is not only a story of those 88 people, but this is a story of so many of us. My name is Anastasia Gajkowska, and when I left my abusive relationship, I wanted to create a movie, a film, a documentary where I interview not only survivors, but thrivers. I mean, people who left abusive relationships and they are really thriving now. I flew to Hollywood to learn the art of making films. I asked 8 questions. This documentary is a sample of combined stories. I use my laptop camera, my phone camera. Many recordings you will see in this documentary were filmed by survivors in their own home. All our participants decided to share their story voluntarily. 88 stories, one soul, one voice, one calling for the whole. Hi, welcome back. In this episode, you are going to hear all the reasons why the Exposé experts, Exposé thrivers decided to share their stories publicly, many of them for the very first time in this documentary. Enjoy!
One of the reasons why I do what I do is because I didn't want to look back and think about the 6 years that I'd spent with him as a waste of time, as something that I regretted. I thought I need to turn that negative experience into something positive. And I was like, once I'd kind of started healing and I'd healed myself, I thought I'm going to start speaking about my experience, and it just kind of went from there, really, you know. And then I was like, I'm going to train and get qualified and actually do this so I can help people in a professional capacity and kind of combine my lived experience with obviously all the practical knowledge that I then learned. But yeah, so I just genuinely, I mean, I look back onto that period and I don't have any regrets. I have my daughter, and, you know, I've been able to help so many men and women, you know, as a result of that experience. Would I want to repeat it? Probably not, but it's kind of shaped me into who I am now. So it's hard, right?
My incredible, powerful journey as the universe's child was to impact the lives of other people and share my story, because a lot of people, and women and men, will relate to this story because they probably have 100% experienced some of the traumatic events in their life similar to myself. And so I feel that I was called to actually share my story and help other people through their journeys in lives, because in school we don't get taught on how to heal and how, like, our mindset works. We just get taught how to do maths, English, sports and things like that. And so what's really important for me is to give people the tools and resources on how to heal and give them the life experience they need to become their best authentic self.
So yes, this is the first time I have very publicly shared my story, and as to why I chose to. And like this was a very hard choice for me personally when I was given the opportunity to do this. And I went back and forth a lot with trying to decide whether or not I wanted to participate in this wonderful opportunity. But I had to look at it as an opportunity for myself and for others. This was an opportunity for me to share my story for self-healing purposes. And it was also an opportunity for me to share my story with others so that you can know that, you're not alone and that you can survive. You don't have to be a victim. You can be a survivor. And a lot of us out there live our lives for years believing that we are the victim and nothing more. Some of us even believe that it's our fault and that it's because of us. And I'm here to tell everybody that that's not the case. You are currently the victim, but you could be a survivor. And you are not alone, and there's help out there for everyone, no matter who you are, no matter what situation you are in, no matter what gender you are or sexual orientation. You're not alone.
This is an epidemic, and I am a healer. And in any situation, whatever the epidemic is, where people are being hurt, not by their own choice, not by their own action, then we have to all help each other. We have to help each other. So that's, it's pretty straightforward. Telling the story helps. Knowing that you can release yourself and be free again helps. People need to see it in another person. It helps to see it in another person, just as it helps to see the hurt and the pain in another person who's been through the same thing as you have been. Those are all points of connection. And we need to connect.
It's also necessary. And I start to feel that it's needed in this world that we share stories so we don't feel alone or think we are alone, because many times I thought I'm the only guy who's experiencing this, and that's not true. There are many more. And also another thing is that I see quite often, it's women who share their stories, and I know there are quite a lot of men. They would love to share their stories, but they are afraid.
One girl out there somewhere, or a boy, hears me and goes, wow, huh? That's enough.
And I share so that I just hope that just if one person can hear this and her not get hurt, then this is all worth it. Absolutely all worth it.
It honestly is because I feel like what I went through was horrible. Multiple concussions, broken bones, broken soul. I literally wanted and begged for death. But I rose from it. I rose out of the ashes, and I'm stronger for it And if all the horrible that I went through, the pain and the anguish can help even one woman stand up for herself, then it was worth it to me. That's why I'm willing to share. Because if I can reach one person, then it wasn't for nothing.
I truly believe the more I share my story, the more other people can hopefully help themselves and move on with their lives and live their best life. We all deserve to be happy. I mean, the bottom line is we truly all deserve to be happy. And some people just don't know how to be happy because they're in such a bad place. And so my goal is simply to let people know that as bad as things were, that's how good they are right now. And it can happen to you. And it's not, I'm nobody in this world, but what I am is someone who went through a really bad time, came out of it, and now is truly living his best life. And I just want to share that story to give hope to others that it can happen to them too. Don't think that you're in such a place that you can't heal and you can't move on. And so thank you for letting me share my story, because if I have one platform and honestly, if I can help one person, then it's all worth every effort that we put into it.
I didn't have anybody. I didn't have anybody saying, you know, I don't think I did. Not too many people were saying you're abused, you know, I can help you, I've been there. I didn't have anybody that said any of that to me. So I felt very alone, and I don't want others to feel that way. You know, if I find out somebody's going through something like that, I want to be there to tell them my experience and tell them how I healed. And to show them, this was the biggest thing, there is life after abuse. I didn't think there was. And so I would love to get the word out there so more and more people are aware, so they don't have to it doesn't have to take them so long to heal like it did for me.
At first, I wasn't going to, because it made me really kind of nervous. But then what made me decide is I have been going through a process of dissecting my actual story that I wrote in my book. And as part of that, I recognized that here's the key reason why. It's one thing to tell myself, like affirmations, it's one thing to tell myself that I am worthy, but it's another thing to believe that what I have to say has value. So this was me empowering myself that, yes, my story happened. I believe that it happened, but to be empowered, confident enough, sure enough, certain enough of myself that my words matter, that whatever I say can make a difference to someone else who's either struggling, whether they're a victim or whether they're into their survivorship. That's important to me, to know that I don't really mind so much about the statement. I don't want people to, that people need to know they're not alone. No, that's not it. It's that what they have to say and what they feel matter. It's to know that what I wrote, what I lived, matters.
I wanted to share my story because, both for my own healing, it's because I just didn't talk about it for so long, and I want other people to know that they are not alone. You can overcome these things, and you deserve to.
So I decided to share my story because I was so unaware of the intricacies of a narcissistic abusive relationship. Even though I lived it as a child, I didn't understand it. But the last relationship really was like, it was so in my face, but I did not know. I didn't have the knowledge of what it was, why. Like I said, I didn't even understand, didn't know I was codependent, didn't understand the real definition of a narcissist. And it shocked me because when he left is when I found out, and I was absolutely shocked. Like you said, I never saw myself as a victim, but I had to come to the realization that I had been victimized, and I'd been victimized my whole life. And it was that yearning, that because I had sought help, I wanted help, but no one had the answers. I mean, I went to therapy and they couldn't, the therapist was not knowledgeable about this. And my partner didn't want to continue because he blamed both of us. He said we were both ganging up on him. So there was no awareness on even a therapist's part as to the dynamics. And I'm thinking, this needs to be heard. So this needs to be out so that people can understand, oh, this is what's happening. And then you can be empowered. You can make a decision on how do I heal? How do I start this? Because for me, it was like I was seeking, but I had no idea that this is what was happening to me in this relationship.
I guess it's like just all those years, those decades of not being heard, when like that's all I needed. Like that would have helped me. And by sharing my story, I'm hoping that it will resonate with somebody and give them permission to feel into maybe what they've been denying in their own lives, or just understanding that they're not alone.
I didn't share my story for the longest time. Like if you go back and talk to anybody in my family and my friends when I was in those marriages, none of them knew. I didn't really tell them until I was out, and nobody understood why I left, because they saw the persona that I wanted them to see. I wanted them to see that I was in a happy marriage and life was good. And so they didn't see what was happening behind closed doors. And so once I got out of that relationships, I believe it's part of your healing journey. Like, we have been through something, us as survivors, we've been through something that most people don't understand, don't know about. It's still a behind the closed door topic around the world. When I did start talking about it, I think that it helped people understand of the choices that I made and why I made those decisions. I lost friends, I lost family members. When I set my boundaries, I definitely came across of people that didn't believe me. And that is part of the process. Like, it was hard to do that, but I honestly believe that starting this conversation, having this conversation with people, women that have gone through this, they're going to start speaking up. When I have talked about it, even before the book or the podcast, this was, a couple of years ago, I would speak women's conferences, and women would come up to me afterwards and they would always say, I thought I was the only one. I felt so alone. And so I knew once I started hearing that was my purpose, and my passion was to start talking about it. And I really believe that starting the conversation, allowing women to know that they're not alone, and that to take away the shame. That's the biggest thing. We were all shameful. We were all fearful to tell our stories. There's shame that comes along with going through domestic abuse. How did we get in that situation? And so taking away the shame from that, we didn't do it. It wasn't us. And so we don't really have anything to be shameful about. And so just taking that shame away and growing into our power and starting to use our voice. And your story is going to help someone else. You don't know what's going to connect you to someone else, to someone else, to someone else, to someone else, to someone else. There's a connection. There's your story or your tone of your voice or the same thing that you went through with someone else. That's going to connect you to somebody. And you could be that person that helps that person decide to leave that relationship.
I decided to share my story so I can empower other women to leave their abusive relationships, because they have to know that they cannot change the other person. They could give all the love they want, but it has to be the other person's decision to change. And that could take time, or maybe it could not happen at all. And if you're dealing with somebody who has narcissistic personality disorder, they are completely fine with the way that they are. They are not willing to change no matter how many times they pretend to. So I want other women to band together and stand up for their rights, their own beliefs, share their voice and their story. They deserve to be heard. People who are abused do not deserve to be silenced. They do not deserve to be victimized, because I was victimized at my job. So, I feel like it's a great learning experience. It's not the way I would have chosen to want to, empower myself. But it's changed things for the better. It's put my mind in a different perspective. I no longer feel like I have major depression from when I was diagnosed years ago. I feel better about myself, and I want other women to feel better about themselves as well.
I want women who are caught in domestic violence situations to see what it's like from a child's perspective and how it's affected me into my adulthood, to perhaps make the decision earlier to leave. But I do understand how hard that is from witnessing my mum be so controlled. And I want them to keep going until they do. And the earlier they do it, the better it is for them and their children. And I think that it's something that you can't live in forever, because that would be a really sad existence, and nobody deserves that. Nobody. I want women to see that outside of what they're at, there's this life beyond that it can be so beautiful and joyful. And it's still, they're still going to have problems and they're still going to have to work through things, but to stop attracting that to their life, to make the choice to show up for themselves first and foremost.
I decided to share my story because I can sit here and say go no contact, go get a restraining order, walk away, but it doesn't really mean anything without some real life experience behind it. I feel like my story gives me credibility.
Finally, the reason why I decided to share my story is to remind people to be true to themselves. Be true to yourself. Take care of yourself. Don't let anyone dictate your life. And live life on your own terms.
I like very much to share my survival story because I think that's very helpful for others, because our abuse story, who cares about the the story of abuse? It's kind of tragic, and it's it what can we learn from it? But from the survival story, I think people can learn and get motivated and just validated. It's just very interesting to see growth, and I'm all for growth. I'm all for blooming and development, and I think that's recovery is a growth and development, progression, and it's just a beautiful story, I think.
So many people struggle with this, and it's heartbreaking, the phone calls I get and the emails, and every single one I get, I feel their pain, and no one should have to go through it, especially younger kids, or that to me, when adolescents go through that and they don't know what hit them, and then their self-esteem struggles, and so I just want to get the word out.
Sharing my story is something that I've always wanted to. I had wanted to speak, to defend my mom, to protect my brothers. As a child, I had very little sleep because I wanted to make sure I would get up at night and make sure that they are okay, because my father was very abusive. I would not sleep. I would protect them. I would do whatever it takes. My mouth was the thing that helped me. I don't know how to fight physically. I don't know that. I will only speak. And so I wanted to share my story to first of all, to keep healing myself from all of those things, And then secondly, knowing that the situation, things that affect women and children are universal, not just in Cameroon. If we don't share our stories, we cannot help. We cannot give hope to the abused, to the rejected, to the homeless, to the hungry, to those who are considered as nothing in society. We cannot give hope to them. It is by sharing our stories so they will know that they are not alone.
I decided to share my story because it's important that we all band together and speak on these topics that, a lot of people don't want to talk about. They're too afraid to talk about for whatever reason. And I think that when others speak, it gives other people permission to show up and speak into what's going on for them. And I think that's going to be really helpful in creating a global change.
I decided to share my story through the book because over the years I had shared it on other different platforms. Many times I had said, I don't know many people had said you should write a book. And I just discounted it because I didn't think my story was valid enough in this space. I didn't get, my body wasn't physically harmed per se. I wasn't left with a disability. I wasn't shot and survived. And I'm talking about other survivors in my space that have been really, really left with a physical piece that reminds them every day of what they went through. But then I was like, you know what? My story has helped so many other people that come directly to me. Why not, right? Why not share in this way? And so that's what made me sort of share. And then to understand and to have people understand that they're not alone. There are people that look like me that do not know that there's help available. As an African-American woman, the issue of domestic violence kills Black women at a higher rate than any sort of ethnicity. And I wanted other people to know that you can survive no matter where you come from, that this affects everybody across the board. But look at what the other side can look like.
So why I continue to share my story and shared it during this documentary is because I know the power of storytelling. It actually started for me was sharing my story helped heal me. And then I saw that people related to my story. I started sharing it more and people were relating and going, yeah, I'm going through that now. And I saw the impact by me saying, oh, I've been through it, but this is the other side. They're like, wow, there's hope for me yet. So it started as a healing journey for me. And then I saw the ripple effect. So the point really is, because there's so much healing, and it's not just for us, it's for the generations around us, it's for my children, it's for other women. I don't want to continue a world where women's voices are shunned, for women's voices to be quietened and deafened. I want for everyone to actually have their voice heard. And yeah, so for me, that's a really personal mission, is to start speaking my own voice, because I know once I speak my voice and come into that authentic power myself, other women will be able to do the same, because they share the same stories. They may not be in the same time frame, they may not be in the same age group, but I know that there's power in it. I know the power behind sharing is healing and the ripple effect.
So, and I want to help other women, and I want is not to be exactly about me. I want it to be about them. But and my full story is super long and super crazy, but it really boils down to like taking the time to learn about who you are and understanding that. And I haven't been in a place like this before. I kept thinking like I'll write a book, but like not till I get to the end. And this isn't an end, but this is like a finale of a series of just trying to figure myself out. So I feel this this year or this fall is like the beginning of becoming who I really am. So I am using this as a platform for that, and I hope that it will jumpstart other platforms as well.
I decided to share my story on this documentary because I feel it's really important to step out of that shame. I feel that, like I've said, by sharing our experience and what we've been through, it can actually help other people around me. I was always taught in early recovery that if I'm upset that I should share that, right? And I always looked at that as a negative thing. I'm going to burden somebody. But the way somebody explained it to me is, imagine if I was having a bad day and you decided to reach out because you're really struggling. All of a sudden I get taken out of myself, and now I'm focusing and helping you. And we could have stories to share together that can really change the way we think, right? The way we learn, and help us drop that shame, right? And so when you asked me to be a part of this project, I thought this is an amazing opportunity to share a part of my life, which was that codependency and that abusive relationship with other people, because that's not a side that I talk a lot about, right? I talk a lot about the drug and alcohol addiction and how that went, but you know, it was just all part of the big mess, essentially.
These are stories of powerful women who have gone through some stuff, very hard, difficult stuff in their lives, and they survived. And they realized, if we don't share these experiences with others, there are people who are right now, as I speak with you, they are waiting for that voice of hope. They're waiting for that book to read, to see what they can do with their situation. They don't have. So why not do it? So I was doing it to give hope to the hopeless.
I decided to share on this project because I challenged myself to get uncomfortable and, grow my comfort zone. I was really shy when I was younger, and even in the relationships that I was in that were abusive, I was extremely passive and I didn't use my voice. And so any opportunity that I have where I can practice using my voice and not make it about me and my fear of speaking, but about the person on the other end that's listening, who's struggling through what I've been through, that is what, gives me that courage to actually share and be that voice. Because when I was going through it, the thing that helped me the most was just hearing other people's stories, that they are okay and they survived it, and that they are thriving in their life, and that it is possible to find a happier relationship and be free. And so I just want to always share my story because I want those that are going through it to know that that's possible.
I am sharing my story to help others, to help other women where, I think a lot of us let our hormones do the picking. We meet a guy and our hormones are crazy and we're strongly attracted to that man. We need to use our brains and we need to really get to know the man. I didn't kiss a guy. I stopped kissing a guy. I didn't want hormones to get in the way. I would go on many, many different dates and strongly get to know a man. And I'm hoping that other women don't let their hormones speak for them.
It makes me so sad to see other women go through what I went through and what my daughter went through as well. So it's not just me, it's my daughter. And I want to share and I want to educate so that people don't don't have to go 4 years in an abusive relationship. They can see the signs and make the choice to get out quicker, or go and seek help, go and talk to someone, go and, get the help to get out of that relationship. And I want people to have healthy relationships because that's what we all deserve, right?
I wanted to share my story because I feel that we have a responsibility to help people come out of the situations that we were once in. I believe that once you come out of a situation, I don't think you're just supposed to go somewhere and sit down and just be happy that you're out of it. I think that we have a responsibility to take what we know and to help someone else out of the situation. We have to be strong for the people who aren't strong enough yet. The people who feel that they need the validation because they want to know, is this just me? Is this just all in my head? Am I just imagining this? Because if a person is gaslighting you and they're manipulating you, sometimes you are so confused and you're so exhausted. You're so worn down emotionally and mentally that you think it's just you. And you don't understand until someone else comes along and turns the light on for you. And they're like, walk this way. Here, I can light the path for you until you can see for yourself. And then once they're out in the light and they're able to see what they couldn't see before because they're in this state of confusion, then they can heal and then they can go back. So that's my reason for doing this. I tell my story because I want to equip women. I want women to feel like this happened to me. I'm going to be okay. And one day I'm going to reach back and I'm going to help someone else. So that's why I do it. That's why I wanted to tell my story.
I've spoken a lot about, my journey and from perspective from childhood interpersonal relationships until now. And I just think that what we're doing being here today and talking about this, and you're collecting these stories, which is also like so empowering for me to see, because, I am just one person coming here to speak to you today, but you are the one reaching out and hearing all of these stories and getting in depth with us and connecting with us. So I really appreciate that. And I want to celebrate your energy that is going into this. So this is a huge movement and it's a huge thing. And I think that it's beautiful and it's amazing, and that we have all the reason in the world to celebrate one another and speak out and take up space. and the resources are there. And if they're not, then we're just going to keep creating them together. And I look forward to seeing it all come together and what comes of it all.
There's so much shame that comes with going through experiences like this, and yeah, like people are different, and whether you see what's going on or not, whether they choose to show what they're going through or not, I think we're all, doesn't matter who we are, where we come from, we're all going through the same human experience, and we all have our things going on, and there's no need to be ashamed of, you know, what you're going through or what you've gone through, because well, it doesn't serve any purpose to feel shame, does it? It's like just poison just taking over the cells in your body. Shame is.
I was embarrassed of my situation as well. I felt shame.
Yeah.
So that's why I was like trying to hide it.
Yeah.
Because I always had thought to myself, oh, I would never end up in a situation like that. Not me.
Yeah.
But there I was. So I was embarrassed to admit it to some people. But then slowly to come out of the closet and tell everybody about it. And then people's reactions were like, well, I kind of thought there was something going on. It would have been easier if I had just told everybody straight from the beginning and get some good advice and support.
The abuser has instilled so much shame within us that I would say that's where a lot of this shame comes from initially. Of course, if we've been in other types of these relationships, you know, there's a greater propensity to feel this shame. And also, I think the society doesn't really honor the stories of victims very well. I think a lot of people don't come forward because of this shame, and because, you know, they could be very much ostracized from the rest of society, from their family, you know, from a group of friends. So I think it's a really brave and difficult decision when we decide to take that step forward and that step out.
Oftentimes, even when people get out of a situation, you know, the codependency that's created by those situations and the sense of dependency on someone leaves a void in their life where they end up going right back into another situation, and they end up in these situations over and over again. I especially see that with women. It happens with men too, but I would say that women, there's more, that's more stigmatized.
Any person who puts one finger on you, you don't deserve to be with them whatsoever. They don't deserve you at all, because you're worth so much more than that. You don't deserve to be with them whatsoever. They don't deserve you at all, because you're worth so much more than that. We all are worth so much more than that.
Strongly get to know the guy that you're with. Don't move so fast with a man. I moved incredibly fast. Date a year, 2 years. Strongly get to know the man. And pay attention to that sixth sense, because it's there. That gut feeling is there, and it's telling you something. And listen to your friends. When your friends are saying, whoa, Teresa, we don't like that man, pay attention to that. Pay attention to your friends and what they're saying. Because they see and we don't. We become blinded.
Self-awareness is so important, because you have to know these things about yourself. Because if you know this about yourself and you know the traits and the characteristics of narcissistic people, it helps you bring it all together and to protect yourself. Because if you only know yourself, it's like the book and The Art of War. If you know your enemy and you know yourself, then you don't have need to fear the enemy. If you only know your enemy, but you don't know yourself, this comes back around to you. If you just know yourself, but you don't know your enemy, it's going to keep coming back around to you, because the enemy is just going to change its costume. It's going to come through another person, because you never took the time to figure out, how does this enemy work? How do they think? What are their traits? What do I need to guard myself against? So when you know that, you don't have to be afraid anymore, because you know yourself, you know you have a tendency to be a little relaxed on boundaries. So then you know going forward, I need to work on my boundaries, and I need to be okay saying no. That protects you.
Because I am happy, and I'm doing things for me. And I really want other women and other men that are in a situation like that to know that you can do this and you can start over, and your kids will be okay, and they will look up to you and see that strength, and they will be okay. So it's a positive effect. It was hard at first to take those steps and to tell them and to see their disappointment. But they see how happy I am now and the changes I've made for myself. And I hope that they're proud of me, because I'm proud of them.
And if your present is abuse, then that's what your future is going to be, unless you leave. That's the only way that you can predict the future, is if you stay. But if you leave, you can't predict the future.
I struggled with getting divorced because I always wanted my kids to have like a very stable childhood. I took a lot of the blame for leaving because I did leave, and I felt that it was all my fault. Any issues my children had after that point were all my fault. I realize now that what was my fault was when they told me things that were hurting them at with their dad. I just validated him, and I would enable him and say that was fine. There, he's just doing that because he loves you. And I didn't validate their feelings. And I think whether you're married, whether you stay or you leave, it's important to continually focus on validating your children's feelings. And your children are having a different experience than you are, and they don't necessarily need to know your experience. But if they are being hurt in any way, you need to validate their experience, and you need to listen to their experience, whether it's staying and making sure that you defend the child, or it's leaving and making sure that you make it as easy as possible, through gray rocking, through being very simple in the relationship, for not causing any of the conflict. Just make sure that you understand your children are having a different experience than you are, and they deserve to be validated.
And I've had people kind of say to me, oh, well, why did you stay? Did you enjoy the abuse? I was asked that recently, and I was like, please don't try to understand it unless you've been in the situation yourself. And every situation is going to be different. But until you've been through something as traumatic as being in an abusive relationship, it doesn't necessarily always have to be physical. Coercive control, it can destroy someone. But in my situation, I had all forms of abuse.
How can we help a friend that might be in this abusive type relationship? I would say first and foremost, be a listener for them. Let them know that you are there for them no matter what, that you can create a safe space for them if they need to. You may even help them create a safety plan of some sort. if they're, trying to get out. But I would also say that you have to meet your friend where they are. And there's a good chance that they're not maybe ready to leave yet, even though harm is being inflicted. And we have to honor that. We have to honor where the people are. I think it takes several times sometimes for people to leave abusive relationships. There's a lot of leaving and then going back, and we're just going to be that stable, steadfast person in their lives that is ready to listen whenever they need us.
And that when we are the friend of someone who's trying to leave an abusive relationship, the more I tell that person to leave, the more anxious that person's going to be. And now they're insecure even more. So what happens to them psychologically is they default to the person that they think makes them feel secure, which is the narcissist. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that we educate ourselves and we know as much as we can about this person's fear of what's going to happen next. And let's face it, there are narcissists out there that are physically violent. Like our fear of being hurt is real. Our fear of a narcissist hurting our children is real. Our fear of a narcissist destroying our reputation, destroying our business, it's real. Our fear of being financially ruined, it's all real. So our fears are not invalid. In fact, they're valid, but we stay because we're trying to avoid that potential. And so if a friend comes along and says, oh, you're in a bad situation, you should leave him, I'm only going to freak out even more and secure myself with him even more, because that's what makes me feel safe. Because if you try to validate a narcissistic abuse survivor too quickly, they won't believe you, because the narcissist has conditioned them to believe that they're the narcissist. They're the problem. And so you have to be very gentle when dealing with a narcissistic abuse survivor so that they can start sharing things about their experience, in their time. And I think sometimes as friends of narcissistic abuse survivors, we just want to hoorah and pat them on the back. They're coming out of a fog. It doesn't feel natural to suddenly be validated after so many decades and weeks and months of being invalidated.
What is your superpower?
My strength, and knowing that I can think it, believe it, and achieve it.
My ability to share my experiences.
Unconditional love.
Vulnerability, honesty, love.
I'm always willing to help people.
My heart.
I can love the people who hurt me.
I can sense people.
Es resiliencia.
Being able to speak.
I'm a very, very fast learner.
The ability to relate to all different kinds of people.
I still always see the best part of every person.
Bringing people together.
I can find anything, anywhere.
I'm very supportive.
I'm just superwoman on you.
Intuition.
Realizing my character.
To see the good in others.
Listening.
Courage.
My mother.
Authenticity.
To make friends.
Deep connection.
My ability to grow.
Helping others.
Growing.
Listen to my heart.
It's creativity and innovation.
Is recombobulation.
Is being me.
Seeing the world with wonderment.
Patient.
To understand at a very deep level.
Love.
Bring out the deeper parts in people.
To think logically.
Self-healing.
Motivate people from the heart.
A wszystkie kobiety, które dzisiaj słyszeliście, są dowodem na to, że ta zmiana jest warta tego, żeby ją podjąć i warta jest tego, żeby o siebie zawalczyć.
This was an experience that actually helped us learn how to love ourselves better.
Everything isn't happening to you, everything's happening for you. We don't have to get trapped in the past story. Instead of believing that we're broken and wounded and nobody will ever love me, we need to shift that perspective and say, no, I'm a warrior. I survived the unthinkable. And now I am stronger and better. I have gone through it and I've come out even better than before.
Someone else out there is living our life. Someone else out there is living the life that all of these survivors and thrivers have escaped right here, right now. You can pick up any newspaper. You can go online to any news outlet And you'll hear about mostly women, some men, but mostly women who are killed by their boyfriends, who are killed by the children of their father. You hear it all the time. And so there's someone out there right now that is living your survivor story. And when you start speaking, you give that person hope. So suddenly, with the hope, they start to have this idea of choice. And that is really possible. That's where you can really help someone create great impact in that person's life, and if they stay on the path, they can then in turn create great impact in their life. They can end generations of trauma. They can end generations of codependency, generations of women and men picking the wrong partners and staying and not understanding what's going on. And I think that is so encouraging. And that's why you do what you do, because you want to encourage people to awaken and to take ownership over their life in a powerful way and to tell their story.
You just don't know what people have gone through in this life to live, to stay alive, to breathe, to not cry, to hide their laughter because someone else doesn't want them to laugh. Someone says, oh, well, blah, blah, blah has happened to me. Immediately take a breath and say, what if that were me? How could I handle that?
Your reality can change. Who you are can evolve. You need to focus on love to access the reality of who you are. You need to embrace love in your life.
But that's what we're missing in this universe. It's love. And that is the antidote to hate, crime, pain, depression, anxiety, and hurting each other.
Thank you so much for watching all 14 episodes. And I would love to invite you for the last one, which explains what Exposé movement stands for and what's the whole movement about. And it's also a huge invitation for all of you who would like to join in the next Exposé documentary. See you soon! If this episode resonates with you, please go to exposenetwork.com. You will find the link below, and we would love to learn more about you and your story. Could you do me a favor and share this episode with at least 2 of your friends who might be going through some difficult, challenging relationships? Remember, together we can make a difference. Thank you. You can thrive and you can be happy after an abusive relationship. Do you have a story to share?
It's night in the city and I'm on my way back home, humming on my favorite ditty, swinging like Natalie Cole. But then out of the blue, who strolls down the boulevard but you? Your place is closer than mine. Why don't we go there and have some more wine? 'Cause life is for living. Let's see where the sun might lead. Let's see where the sun might lead. Waking up to a brand new day in between your sheets, breaking up in the best of ways, and I'm back again on the street.